Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Here's another Postscript Saturday for you, a PS to our real estate week, where I share a little bit of behind the scenes at Love to List and also informing and educating you, the consumer, on the value a professional realtor can be for you when you're buying, selling, or investing in real estate. And it's a gorgeous morning. I'm Nancy Yawner. I'm in Northern Virginia. It's August 2024, and this is going to be of interest to you if you're buying or selling now. However, we also put these on our YouTube channel, so it's a resource whether you're buying or selling now or a year from now or 2 years from now. So it's a lot of good, valuable information for you, the consumer. So if you are watching now or watching the replay, let me know and feel free to share this video if you know someone that this could be helpful. So right now in our industry, we are having a shift. And I've been talking all month. I've dedicated this month to the shift and the changes that are happening. And for some of us, the changes aren't as necessarily as impactful because of the way that professional realtors in Virginia have been doing business for a long time. Meaning, when we work with a buyer, we usually have a buyer agency agreement signed. That was the rules, that was the requirement. So many of us have been doing that for a long time. In other areas of the country, however, a lot of agents didn't get buyer agreements signed and were showing property without that. So that particular requirement is now nationwide. So as a buyer, you have to understand that an agent, when you want to see a property, you're going to have to sign something. You're going to, oh, hey, Russ, sorry I missed you this week. I know I owe you a phone call. So as a buyer, you're going to have to sign something if you want to see a property. You're going to have some choices. You're going to either sign a buyer agency agreement, and then, or if you go right to the listing agent, that listing agent is going to have you sign something that says that you have a choice of how you want to be or not be represented. So you could go and look at that property and be unrepresented. You can also do something what is called in our industry dual agency. Now, dual agency, disclosed dual agency in the state of Virginia is allowed. And what does that mean? It means that that listing agent is representing the seller, and then you want to see the property and you don't want to go unrepresented. That means that you sign an agreement with that agent to represent you, and that's a disclosed dual agency. I personally, I have done them in the past years ago. As a business practice, I don't do dual agency because what happens is then you become more of a referee versus a coach. So when a seller hires me, they're hiring me to give them advice. I become a fiduciary type relationship with that client. So I find it very difficult to then also sign an agreement with a buyer, because then I can no longer really give advice to either party. I just become more of passing information, and I have to be more neutral. So as a realtor, I usually let the buyer know that they can go unrepresented, or we can refer them to another agent if they like, if they want that representation. And that's what I have done for many, many, many years. So as a buyer in today's, with the new rules, you will not be able just to look at a property without having something be signed, like calling the agent. So just be aware when agents want you to sign something, that is the reason why. Also, for a long time in our buyer agreements, they say that it is the buyer's responsibility for the buyer's agent compensation, which that hasn't changed either. What has changed is that the sellers often were paying our co-op compensation. And what has changed is now we don't know if the seller is paying our co-op compensation because the co-op compensation has gone by the wayside. It is no longer in our MLS. It used to have a little field, and we would know when we show property what that seller is willing to pay the buyer's agent. Now we have to find out through other ways as to whether or not that seller is willing to pay the buyer agent compensation. And you as a buyer and me as the realtor, we will know that before we show you the property. So we know if the seller is going to be paying the buyer's compensation. So how we find that out, we have to call or text the agent unless the agent has put in some remarks that the seller's willing to pay some concession. So a concession to the buyer is different than compensation to the buyer's agent. So the concession goes to the buyer and the buyer can then pay the agent's compensation. So unless it's noted in the listing that the seller is willing to pay some concession, or you have to talk to the agent, text the agent, email the agent to find out if the seller is willing to pay some of the buyer agent compensation. So that's going to be a little different in our world, but you as a buyer we will know how the compensation is going to get paid. And it's always been for many years that it's the buyer's responsibility. So if for some reason the seller is not, then you have to make a decision, buyer, as to whether or not we're going to look at that property, and then we talk about how that gets handled. So you have to be prepared as a buyer to perhaps maybe not see a home that you're interested in if you don't want to look at properties where sellers are not willing to do that. So we don't know how it's going to shake out. Best business practices, market conditions, professionalism, all of that will come into play as we see how things roll out over the next few months. Just be sure to have conversation with myself, with your realtor, about what is going on so that you understand. You have to understand the consumer as a buyer, the agreement that you're signing and what it means to you. Same with the seller. And it's been like that for years with our listing agreements. We've had listing agreements since I've been selling real estate for 35 years. We've had buyer agreements since early 90s, I guess. So it's just now it's being more enforced and looked at more carefully, and there's more clarity. So you have to have good communication with your agent. Make sure you have conversations so that you understand the documents and that you understand what your agent's role is. And I am going to talk next week about all the value that an agent can bring to a buyer. I am working on a situation right now where I have a buyer that we're on our second contract because we got out of our first contract because we could. We were able to get out during our due diligence period. And so it is so important that you align yourself with a realtor that has the experience and knowledge to help you navigate through the home buying process. It can be quite complex. The same buyer that we just got out, where we wrote on a resale, and there are a ton of inspections. It's a very complex property, has so much on the property, so much to understand. And this buyer really had no clue as to even how to go about any of that. He's their first-time country buyer coming from the city. So they're just thrilled with the knowledge and experience that I have to help them through this because they wouldn't know what to do. So there's a lot of value whether you're buying a condo, a single family, a townhome, a country property. there is a lot of value that an agent can bring, and I'm going to go over that with you next Saturday. So things are shifting and changing, and it's just really important. I cannot reiterate it enough for you to make sure that you're understanding what you're signing, what your role is, what your realtor's role is in the transaction, and how they can help and guide you, and the value that they bring to you on both sides. So that's it. That's another Postscript Saturday. I am off, still celebrating my birthday month. My husband gave my daughter and myself a trip to the spa, so I'm going there today. So really looking forward to that. And meanwhile, I hope that you're having a good summer. I know a lot of people are going back to school next week, so summertime is going to kind of be coming to an end, if you will. But I hope that you're having a great summer. And in the meantime, thumbs up, lots of love, and keep smiling, okay? All right, see you next weekend.